So Ashley, tell me what your area of expertise is.
Well, thank you. A lot of it's media. So it's based on media, getting the word out, getting coverage that you need, getting basically the information out to folks so that they can process it in a different way, and then how to do that over multiple types of media, and then how to connect with the most amount of people that are that would be good customers for you or for the person, or to sell a certain product or a certain service.
So when a business owner is looking at expanding their reach and wanting to expand into this PR field, and especially the media field, how should they think about the sequence of where do I begin and how do I know where my audience is at, and is my audience on that platform, and how do I connect with them when I'm there? Can you give us some insight as to where does a business owner begin to even think about this process?
That's a good question. Yes, for sure. First off, when I'm working with a client, I sit there and I look exactly at, what is it that we're trying to do? Who are we trying to go after? What's the age demographic? What's the price point? What are we looking at? And that matters, because a lot of times people go willy-nilly and they just do whatever. You know what I'm saying? They throw things up on the wall and see what sticks. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do social media, or I'm going to hire a social media person, or I'm going to jump in and do YouTube, or I'm going to jump in on the radio, or I'm going to do a podcast, or I want to do something like on demand, like Amazon or Netflix. All these things are great concepts and great things in its entirety, but we have to put certain things first. And also you have to have certain recognition before you start other things. So there's there's kind of like a building blocks. So once we understand exactly the direction, the best type of clients, the financial component involved, and where we're going to find that, then we launch. And usually we like to start with content first. We always want to create the content, and then we can throw that content exactly where it needs to go. Without content, we don't have anything. And then you find people that are scrambling around to create content. They don't have the content. Or if they do have the content, the quality that the content was shot or recorded is not what it needs to be. So there we go again. And I know how people are. I mean, if you're a genius, if you're very intelligent, you know where you're going, you don't like to repeat things multiple times. You know what I'm saying? You want to do it, and you want to do it right, and then you want to go on to the next thing. And I find that a lot of people get stuck in the minutia of, okay, I don't want to keep recording this, redoing this stuff. So we want to do it right the first time, and then do it right on different types of levels so that we can incorporate that media into different types of setups. So we don't want to just have content just for this. We want to have content for this, and then possibly offset it for something even bigger. But we want to have that possibility.
How many options are available out there in the media space?
Okay, there's a lot. Media is huge right now. And as we know, and many of us have been at home for a large period of time the last few weeks, maybe the last few months, we know how media is. We know that we have connected probably more with our TV than we have in the past. We know that we've connected and watched maybe everything on Netflix possible or Amazon Prime. We know that many of us have gotten into podcasts and didn't realize that many podcasts existed on the planet. So we are knowing that media is very important. We're also seeing a different change too. Now, if you think about it, we're also seeing how mainstream media is not always the successful way of going. We're seeing that Netflix is taking over that space. We're seeing that Amazon is taking over that space. We know that Apple is now involved in that space. We're also getting away somewhat from terrestrial radio. Now, I'm on terrestrial radio. I have a nationally syndicated radio show, and that's awesome. But see, I know that I have to diversify. So it's not just national radio that gets it. I also have a nationally acclaimed podcast. So I'm not just doing one thing, I'm doing both. And see, that's why, when we talk about this stuff, you want somebody that just doesn't talk about it in a vacuum and say, well, I know that this works or this works. You actually need to go to somebody that's actually done it and knows what doesn't work and what does work. But first off, you have to figure out what doesn't work. And I figured that out. And so you want to diversify, and we know that there's also all these different things that are opportunities for us. But one of the biggest issues is what? It's getting the word out. It's getting people to know that it exists.
Oh, when you're talking about content, I'm assuming that you're referring to sharing that business owner's area of expertise, sharing what they know, whether if they create systems such as myself, then that's a topic that I would be sharing. What about any, sometimes I'll listen to podcasts that are 3 to 7 minutes long where somebody's just sharing an aha moment around something. Do you find that to be valuable as well? Or does it need to be very focused? This is the type of content that you need to be sharing.
Well, one of the things that I believe in is that you want to get consistent in your content sharing. If someone's consistently going to find you and then they know that September has, let's say, 7-minute podcast, and I know that I'm going to get a 7-minute podcast from you, and I'm going to take that time and I'm going to put 7 minutes away for that. That's awesome. However, if you're going to have a 7-minute podcast, then turn around and have an hour podcast, then it doesn't allow me to have consistency. And I need to know what I'm getting every single time. And I need to feel good about that. And then I need to allot that amount of time in my schedule to hear that on a constant basis. And consistency is golden, right? That's key. That's why Geico is so great, right? We know Geico's commercials in and out because we hear them about 16 times a day.
It's true. We do. All right. Consistency. So consistency is king. That kind of trumps anything else. But when you're looking at your strategy of where do I begin, there's a lot of different options, but you can also repurpose content. We talk a lot about that inside of CEO spaces. If you're having a conversation such as we are right here, this is going to be turned into a podcast. Well, we can take that podcast and then turn it into a blog post. And then we can take the video that we're creating here and post it on YouTube. And now we have video content. What are some other ways that business owners can be thinking about repurposing their content with an end goal in mind, and what would that end goal be other than gaining more clients? Is there other goals that we need to think about when it comes to putting our content out there?
Well, it depends on what you want. Okay, so like if you want to be known, if you want to be known for a specific thing and you want to be the expert in that specific thing, you're not just going for clients anymore. You definitely want the clients because you want the money, right? But you're also going for notoriety. You're going for coverage. You want people to know your name. I've worked with a lot of doctors and a lot of lawyers, who wanted to become at a certain level, and they wanted to be the next. They wanted to be on the news. They want to be on the newscast. They want to have that kind of stuff. They want to have that notoriety. And so if that's something that you're looking for, not only are you trying to get content with clients, but you kind of universally connect with people about certain subject matters that appeal to them, and to be kind of the expert in the field where people feel comfortable with learning from you. So there's multiple levels of stuff that can be created, but you kind of have to know the destiny or working or we flesh it out what it is that you are looking for. Because some people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to say that. They don't want to, but it's like, if you do want to have that type of fame, if you do want to have that type of coverage, we need to know that, because that needs to be incorporated in how we create and package content.
Okay. So that's looking at somebody who wants that, the stature, the fame status. Let's say that you have a business owner that really just wants to get the word out about the difference that they make in the world or in people's lives, and they want to grow their audience. Is their strategies going to be quite different than somebody who wants that fame status, I assume, correct?
Well, to grow the audience is the same, okay. On both, we have to grow the audience to get the word out. That's the only way. I think, I can't remember the girl's name, but it's a late show, and she was on YouTube, and I think she had millions and millions of followers, and that's what led her to be able to get an option, which is, it's getting harder and harder in mainstream media, But I think that you always want to get the word out. You want to have that consistency, but different from just blanketing the public. Mm-hmm. You're trying to go after that certain demographic that will be able to afford to hire you. So like if you are, let's say, a business coach, a top end leadership business coach, you're going to want to blanket a bit, but you're not going to want to spend a lot of time on people that can't afford to hire you, or not in that kind of that branch of work. So you might be able to connect with some people, but we don't want to spend too much time and resources on certain avenues than we would others. So, maybe we don't focus so much on, social media, because a lot of times on social media, when you focus on that, what is your return on that? Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not necessarily focusing on being on the news all the time, because to me, being on the news is great. You have to be really consistent with it. But I've been on the news almost 200 times, and that alone does not equate to clients. So, and that alone doesn't equate to selling books.
But what does it equate to? Why do that 200 times?
you put it on your website, you have notoriety, people look to you as an expert and they say, wow, that so-and-so was on the, and you connect with people that way. They begin to know your name. Maybe, people are watching the newscast, they Google you. Maybe you have a YouTube channel, they check you out. Maybe you have a book, they go on Amazon, they buy the book. Maybe you get lucky to see that, but it's all about notoriety and bringing to the surface, hey, I'm here. Because think about how many people are out there. Think about how many podcasts there are alone.
It's insane.
Yeah. It's hard. And think about how much news we're bombarded by every day. And think about, we as human beings are overwhelmed. Just think about how many people text message and call you and email you in a day. And then WhatsApp chat you, and then Facebook chat you, Instagram chat you, Twitter chat you. God, that's just your personal life with a little bit of people in there for work. But think about you're somebody that doesn't know you, never met you, doesn't know your name. How are we going to educate that person? It's going to take different ways of doing it, and it's going to take consistency and getting your name out there. Because, you've heard a commercial maybe 6 or 7 times that sounded like a good idea on the radio, but it probably took you maybe 10 times before you even called that or even checked it out. Or finally one day you're at the office and you have 10 seconds of downtime. Let me go check out that website and see what it's like.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all about, and it's not one thing. You can't just do one thing and expect it to be awesome results.
Well, that brings me to the next question. You mentioned what's the return on something. So when you're working with your clients and you're beginning that process to understand, is this the right formula? Is this the right strategy? Is this the right platform to put them on? What kind of metrics are you looking at to measure that, to know, okay, stay here, keep nurturing it. Let's do it a little bit longer. It looks like it's going to be good for us. And then let's add this in and test it. Or when do you look at those metrics and get to a point and say, this isn't working. We need to move to a different platform. Can you give us some insight on the measurements?
And, one of the things that I've realized is everything takes some time. So, I know everybody wants it now, and I get that, but but we have to actually establish it, right? So in order to get something to work, we have to establish a really core structure. We got to be consistent, and then we got to kind of create it. So let's just say, I think one of the easiest things to talk about would be like, people talk about creating a YouTube channel. I'm going to create a YouTube channel. I'm going to have this content. I'm going to take content from maybe my national speeches, and I'm going to stick it up there. And then maybe I'm going to put some educational type videos up there on how to do this or how to do that, which is great. And then you want to find someone that can keep you consistent and key, and the quality be consistent, and everything that you're doing consistently, and consistent day uploads and all that great stuff. We're doing it at the right day at the right time. We figured all this out. I know that information. It's changed. I know that the algorithms have changed. I followed it. I get it. We actually, there's actually been an algorithm change that happened about 5.5 weeks ago. Interesting. But you look at the metric, you see how many people are watching, how many people are viewing, how many views have you had, and you're consistent with that. Okay. And then eventually with YouTube, when you're doing it right, you're making money on it. Okay. And it takes some time, but I make money every month on YouTube. Okay. And it takes time, and it took me time to get there, but I look at each metric and I say, okay, I had 1 million individual, standalone impressions in 28 days. Okay. That to me is pretty good metrics. Okay. How many minutes did I have people watch? Okay. I look at it. And it's like you had, like this month, it was a slower month because of COVID and everything, but I think it was 140,000 minutes, which was a lot slower than most months. But that's because a lot of people have been watching everything on COVID. But then you look at all the independent impressions and you see that's some really great stuff. Then you look at the financial capability that you can have, because you can make money on, and people are making some really big money on YouTube now. So you look at those metrics. Like let's take the radio concept, for example. On radio, I look at Arbitron ratings. I look at the Arbitron, but I don't always look at Arbitron. I also look at, social media engagement, because we're always running Facebook Live on all the live shows as well. So let's see what that engagement is. Let's also see, do we have any sales coming from any of the individual places where we have these stations at? Am I getting some sales out of Reno? Do I look like I'm getting anything out of St. Petersburg? Where are the things coming from? And also, if you have call-ins, where is that coming from? Looking at those numbers, so we're trying to equate a listenership when it comes to radio. We're trying to equate a viewership when it comes to YouTube, various different levels, but we want to see that needle move over a period of time. And if we're not seeing something, And over a time period, if things aren't changing, if we're not getting something out of it, getting clients or getting money, then we need to kind of focus our energy. But again, remember, anything that's worth doing takes time to create. And so you're dealing with these massive people that have been doing, let's say, YouTube for 10 years, and they have 2,500 videos up. I mean, that's a lot. That's a huge collection of content. And so, those people, when you look at them and they have 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 followers, they're probably making at least over $10,000 to $15,000 a month on YouTube alone, more than that probably. But you see what I'm saying? But you have to figure out, okay, you have to get into this competitive space with them. You're not really competing against them, but you're also competing for eyes, and just like with podcasts. When we look at a podcast readout and we see where are our listeners coming from, the folks that I work with, we look in the back end and we see, okay, where are they coming from? What's the demographic? How much are they listening? How many people downloaded today? How many, and those are the information that you want to look at, because the more ears in that situation, or the more eyes that we can reach out to, that's powerful stuff. And as long as that number keeps generating itself and gets higher and higher, we know that we're in the right place with the right content.
You mentioned a couple of times that it takes time. On average, how much time do you allow a test of a platform before you pull it?
It's interesting because I always like to test for, you can sit there and we can all start really quickly and then jump. But I've seen that when people jump too quick, they make bad decisions, because what happens is they jump to the next one and that doesn't work. It's almost like, when you go to a restaurant, well, before COVID, you go to a restaurant and there's an hour wait, and you get there and everybody's like, oh God, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And they wait for 20 minutes and then they run down the street to another restaurant and it's an hour wait. And then they do that for another 20 minutes. And by the time they're done, they're starving and they eat somewhere they would have never eaten before. Right. And they're like, God, that food was horrible. Okay. We don't want to do that. We don't want to go down that road. And I see people throw a lot of money at something very quickly. And see, that's one of the things that you got to look at too, is that we're not looking to throw a bunch of money in the very beginning just in one thing. We need to diversify what we're doing, and we need to slowly be thoughtful, and we need to put it and poise it in the right place. And that's one thing that I've learned how to do, is that when people come really fast and they don't, especially when they don't have the content and they're just like throwing money at social media or YouTube or what have you, it doesn't really change things. It's about, you have to have somebody behind you that goes, okay, I understand your message. I get the person that you could talk to. I understand that demographic. I understand it exactly. This is where I know we're going to find it. This is how we're going to shape this. And we're going to consistently put these out on XYZ basis. And we're going to be consistent here. We're going to start here, here, and here. And we're going to do this consistently. And I like to, you got to give it at least 6 months. Anything less than 6 months and it's a rookie mistake. And I understand, but if you never get your feet wet, and you never spend enough time to know what the temperature of the water is, you're not going to know. And so it's, that's why when you're a veteran in media, you understand. And I've been on the air for almost 10 years, on national radio. And over time, it's just consistent, and people remember your name and they come to you when they need help. And that's what you're trying to establish. Nobody's going to go put their faith in somebody that they heard of once or twice, and then it just seems like they were a flash in a pan. That's not what people usually do.
So getting clear about what problem you solve, and you've mentioned this a couple of times. What do you want? What do you want for your life? What do you want? What do you want for your brand? What do you want for your company? Like, what is your vision? You've got to have that piece in place, and then identifying who do you do it for. And I think with that, what I'm hearing you say is with that identification, it's really going to help you. With the identification of who you do it for will help you identify what platform to start on. And then giving it at least 6 months of consistent contribution, because I heard you say consistency is quite key there. So what do you specialize in?
Well, consistency is key. I actually specialize in helping people flesh out what their intent is. Where are we going with this? What do you want? And I can ask the tough questions. There's no judgment here. So, because I also, from my background of what else I do too. So I can understand the human condition. And then because I have so much work and in this space, I understand, one, okay, is this something that we want to do to create a followership? Is this something that we want to do that's going to be a great contribution to radio? Is this something that's going to really contribute in the podcasting? Okay, great. Do we want to take this to the next level? Is there a show idea that you have in mind that you want to do a show around your career, whatever you have going on? Like I've had people that come to me that want to do a show and they're like, hey, I want to do this show, where, XYZ, we're in this medical office, whatever, it's 10 of us doctors, we see all these cases every day. So you'll have people that come to you. I have people that come to me that want to do this, whatever. And so we can get a show made. We can have a show runner. Okay. We can actually conceptualize the show, shoot the show, package the show. We can also pitch, all the major networks, as well as, what we have right now. We see what's going on right now. So the on-demand is so popular. I actually have a TV show on Amazon Prime, and I'm actually working on another show right now as well. And so, and I won a Telly Award for that last show. So I know what quality is, and I know how we can get something on. Okay, because it's got to be the right quality. I mean, the standards, even down to the way it was shot, the standards down to the closed captioning, everything has to be exactly to standards. And if it's not, you just have to redo it all. Okay, so we understand that. We understand what'll work, what won't, and I have some really great connections with some people that have worked with me who are showrunners, who are very good at what they do. And so we can do something even as elaborate as that, or we can start with something that's, maybe more manageable in your eyes. Maybe we start with, getting you a national radio show and figuring out what that looks like, and then being consistent with doing a show on a weekly basis. You see what I'm saying? And then getting that consistency, and then helping you to take that and then, take that off, make that into a podcast, box it up, make it look nice. We stick that somewhere else here too. And then we shuttle all those podcasts out to all the other options. So you have everything from Spotify to iHeartRadio to everything else. So you're hitting the national radio, you're being on those stations, then you're turning around and doing this. So there's a lot of things that can be done. And I have access to understanding exactly how to do that. And I have access to the people that can make that a reality. So that's where I specialize in. And I think a lot of times, I think PR is great, but what I know is that your own PR is the best PR right now, because you're in control of that and you can control the message. And if you hire a PR company later on to get it out, that's great. But we have to have the content. You need to be known. There needs to be consistency. And then that would make sense later on down the road if you wanted to go that direction as well.
I hear a lot of people making money on YouTube. What gives? How does that happen? Is it sponsorship dollars? Is it part of their funnel? How are people making money on YouTube?
Well, a lot of people I got a lot of buddies on YouTube too. And so like I'm making money just directly from ads. So where the ads come in, and then I have companies that come to me and they say, hey, we've been watching your stuff. We'll get XYZ. Can you put our ad in here? And then, you get a certain percentage back on whatever. So I'm getting money off the ads, and it's just a nice check every month, and so that's a good thing. I also have merchandise on there too. Merchandise is okay, but the ads do very well. You also get, where you start like taking a supplement, different things. Like once you get to a certain level, they come to you, hey, we got this product we want you to endorse. We got this supplement we want you to endorse. I have some products right now that I'm looking through to see which ones that I like, because you have to be honest, and you really want to be sure, because you're putting your name on this. You don't want to get a few $1,000s and be like, wow, I put my name on something that's horrible. And, so you got to be really careful. And then a lot of people make money, they'll go live sometimes, and people will contribute quite a bit of money because they've been watching the videos for long, and then they go live, and then you have people that are like super donated, like they give money because they're happy to see this person, or you can answer questions to them, and it's almost like a coaching session for them directly. There's a lot of different things you can do. And so the greatest thing is you can go live, you can put up your content, you can use ad revenue, and all that starts, I think, all you have to have is 1,000 followers to start that, I think. I know that that's what the gaming, but I think 1,000 to start being able to use the ad revenue. So
do you find it challenging for new people that are just starting out on this, hard to get that 1,000 followers? Like, is there a tipping point that, hey, if you can get to 500, then it's uphill from there? But is there what advice do you have to give on that aspect of getting the followers?
That's a great question. Yeah, you'll see it. The thing is that, and it multiplies very quickly. And that's a good thing. Because I remember when I first started mine, I remember I got to 2,500, and I was like, oh, wow, and I'm looking at people with 50 million, and I'm like, ah. And I was like, it only takes 100,000 to get the bronze button. You get a bronze button from YouTube once you have 100,000, and I think the next one's like 500,000, and the next one's 1 million or 10 million, whatever. Anyway, but I don't want to scare everybody. But once you get your first 250 people, it gets easier. And as you're consistent and you find the niche, and if you have someone to help you with the niche, what I'm saying, which is powerful, and you said that we look at what this niche is, people will gravitate to you and they will find you. I mean, and that's the thing, is that you're creating content directly for your niche. And it'll once you hit 1,000, it's very interesting, because you start realizing, okay, I can do this, but we have to start somewhere. Okay. Yeah. It has to start. And you want to do it organically. I know that there's options out there. I don't agree with buying followers. I don't think it's great. I mean, you look at some of the famous folks who have bought followers, and I know that many of you probably look at Instagram, or, and you see the Instagram photo, and it's like, okay, she's got, 10 million followers, but only 2,000 people like the photo. That doesn't make sense. So that makes me realize that they bought a bunch of followers, right, from those companies that are creating these false bot, people. And then you have so it's like, you want to have organic, because the organic people are going to be the people that pay you for your services, right? And then people can see through the BS. And I think nowadays the BS is getting more and more in your face. And so when you feel the BS meter go off, I think that it inspires people to move away from it. So we don't want to ever give off that type of cologne. We want to always constantly be consistent in the organic. And I think people will respect it. And will you have 5 million on Instagram? Maybe not, but you'll be having some paid clients that are paying, and you're not having to worry about that financial, and you're able to focus some more on the content creation.
You mentioned getting help. And I mean, I always advise working with somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. No matter what you're doing in the business, if you've got a friend that can lend you some advice because they've been there and done that, ask them. Do not do it the hard way. So what kind of investment should a business owner be planning for, or what kind of budget should they be planning for to work with somebody such as yourself, as a professional that knows exactly the questions to ask? I know exactly how to start off our strategy. I know how to sequence everything so that we can say, okay, this isn't working, but this one is. Let's continue to do this. What kind of investment are business owners looking at?
It depends on what they're wanting to do. But, in the very beginning, one of the things that I pride myself in is I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm saying I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. But, on an average, you're looking at, a starting point of $10,000, to get in and to do what you need to do, and to create that space, and to start creating content, and to get in there. Sometimes it costs less. If you're like, hey, Ashley, look at this stuff. I'll look at it. I'll be honest with you. Where do you think we should start? If we want to start smaller, great. If we want to start on a bigger scale, that's okay too. It just depends. So it'd be a lot different if you come to me and ask me, hey, I want to do a TV show. I want to create this show. It's going to be a different price point, but at the same time, you're asking for a much bigger play. And so the bigger the play, the more expensive it is, because we have to get all the people involved. We have to get the crews involved. We have to do all that. But the greatest thing is that we can always play to your strengths, and we can always start as big or as medium size or as small as you want to start. Nobody's going to force you to do one thing or another. And that's what's so great, because sometimes you might want to get in there and say, hey, I want to try this out for a couple months. Mm-hmm. Or some of you might say, hey, you know what? I've been waiting my whole life to do this, and I'm not waiting anymore. Okay, I want to do this big. I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to go home. Okay. And if that's how you are, that's great too. And we can play in that space. That's what we're good at. Okay. So it's not, you're not going to freak us out. Oh, we have so much to do. We can adhere to this and create it, but we want to make sure we do everything in the order that we need to make it, because if we do it out of order, it doesn't make sense. So we want to make sure that we start consistent, and we start off a little slower, and we just build and build from there. And then we just, we increase our speed, and we get things done. And then you start seeing a lot of results, and it's a life changer. I mean, it gets the word out, and you start seeing results, but it takes that initiative and that time and that consistency. But once that's gone, it's almost like churning itself out. Even the content that you created, a year ago or 2 years ago will still bring in clients. It'll still drive traffic and clients. And that's what's so powerful. As long as we keep it evergreen, like I would keep it, we can really create some neat stuff out of that.
How far can the 10,000 take somebody? Is that a month?
Well, that can actually start us off like in our first month to really focus on what we're going to do. We have our plan that would put us into a space that we want to have in. So let's say like we want to start a YouTube channel. I guess a great example. Or we want to start a radio show. We could get the content, we get all that set up, we drive that, and yeah, I mean, right now it kind of depends. So if you wanted to just start with a podcast, that could be a lot cheaper of a module that we would have, that we would be able to provide that and start slowly. But, when you're talking about really driving the traffic, especially like a national radio show and having that would also cover, getting the show ready, getting it up there, putting it on other social medias, doing all that type of stuff, and also any sort of time buy that would need to be made as well. So there's a lot of things that go into it. So it's not just our expertise. There's also the moving parts. And usually over time, we can budget things in the right way where it seems to work a little better. And I have some, I can also provide any of that financials as well, and help people. And depending on what they want, we'll make it happen, and we can do it within budget as well.
So dare I ask, is it okay for somebody to venture off and DIY it? So I was having a conversation with Alex Stern, one of the co-founders of Constant Contact. He's also going to be teaching at the upcoming forum that you'll be teaching on.
Awesome.
And yeah, he's great conversation. My God, that guy's got such a big heart. He's just lovely to talk to. I really enjoy spending time with him. But he's throwing out these ideas of what business owners can do to grow and scale their business. I'm like, look, what if you're on a shoestring budget? He's like, oh, I've been scrappy before. And sometimes you have to get scrappy and do what you've got to do to get to that next level, all within integrity, of course. But if somebody wanted to start this process and they're like, hey, I'm a do-it-yourself kind of person until I can't do it anymore and I need to offload it to somebody, do you have any advice on how to get started with the do-it-yourself in the media and gaining exposure that way, so that when they do have the budget, they at least have some sort of foundation to bring to the table when they are working with a professional like you?
And that's great. And I think the thing is that you can definitely do it yourself. I mean, you start off that way. The only reason you go to other people is when it starts getting overwhelming.
That's great.
Okay? And when you want to get to different things that you can't get to without help of somebody else. What I found, though, is that you can start doing things right now. So if you want to start getting on social media and getting on there and getting on Facebook, and do Facebook Live, and get there, and we'll come up with something you want to talk about, and be consistent about it, and shoot it in the proper way, holding it, doing it. Maybe you get something like a gimbal or something like that'll help you to shoot on your own, or maybe get an assistant that can shoot, and really start putting together some good content and see what happens, And then the greatest thing is if you know some folks in the news, maybe reach out to them if there's a story that makes sense that you can talk about. So, stories on the news are based on what's happening in current affairs. So if there's something that you can talk about, recently, the last few times I was on the news, it was about, bad things happening in society, basically. So they call me, whether it's because I have a different background as well. So I work in a psychology type background, but we're not really talking about this here. But when I go on the news for certain things, I can talk about that. When I'm on the news about media or radio or something that's going on, they call me to do something. But it has to be smart and intelligent and directly relate to a current affair. And if you can find that, and if you have a friend that can get you on there, what about going online and finding buddies that have podcasts? What about calling them up and saying, hey, could I be on your show? Or if you have let's say you have a book out, having somebody go around and send some emails to some of the shows you want to be on, being able to take that content, putting it on the website. So, and then what we could do later on is repurpose that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And just like September was talking about, we can repurpose that and create that in a different content. And maybe let's say like eventually down the road, we, create from scratch an awesome YouTube channel. And some of those sound bites we're able to cut in and edit in some of the stuff that you talked about from the interview, which even gives you more credence than having just the interview itself. So it's like, okay, when I was on this show or I had this. So yes, definitely, reach out to the folks that, are on the news, that work with news, that maybe report. Also check out the podcast that you can be on. Reach out to any friends that have some radio shows. That sort of, get on social media and start creating that. Start creating your content. If you want to start, starting a channel right now, start your channel. Start recording some video. But remember one thing. Always put the content out that matters most. Always remember to make it right and make it good. When you go back and erase stuff because you're not proud of it or it doesn't look to the same level you want, remember, a lot of that stuff's going to stay there. Google's amazing how it seems like there's copies of everything all over the place and it's hard to get rid of it. So if you have a video where, it doesn't look great and maybe you don't look the way that you want to look, and looks really don't matter that much, but you got to think about that. And is the content good enough to go with the rest of the channel, let's say for the next 20 years? And I'm not saying to stop creating. I'm just saying before you create, think, come up with a plan, make sure this is exactly what you want, because it's going to be up there for a long time.
I had a coaching session with one of my clients this morning, and the conversation was all about imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. How can I teach somebody if I haven't fully reached my goal yet? And of course, obviously I had advice and direction for him, but what would you say to that?
Imposter syndrome. Yes. Many very smart, intelligent people suffer with imposter syndrome. And and we had to go through the craziness to figure it out. And we had to have gone through the low points to figure it out, right?
So true.
Isn't it crazy?
So true.
Isn't it crazy? Like, you had to go through this stuff to be able to coach somebody. If you hadn't gone through it, you can't coach them.
That's right.
Right. It's interesting. It's like anything else. You had to walk through it. And you're right. We had to get over to a certain place. But I think at some point, though, we can get as good as we can, but we can't get into the inactive part, though, too. We can't sit there and worry, oh, God, I hope this is perfect. Because, creating is not perfect. There's never going to be a perfect time to create. It's never going to be perfect. It's like when people talk about having the perfect time to have a child.
Never. Just never. Do it.
Right? There's never. You wait the rest of your life. There's never a perfect time.
No.
So start creating, but create with intent.
That's good. I like that. Yes. And as I was telling my client this morning, you've been on this journey for 5 years. Who you are today is not the same person you were 5 years ago. So who you're speaking to today is your five-year previous version of yourself. You need to share what you know so far. Yeah, you may have 10, 15 more years ahead of you of growing where you ultimately want to reach. But along the way, you should be sharing that content with people and helping them grow as you grow and contribute in that manner. So for those that are listening, if you're questioning, well, who am I? Who the hell are you? You've got experience underneath your belt. You've got life under your belt. You've got hard knocks and figuring it out and asking people. And something that you said that's key, Ashley, and this is something that Alec really focused on as well too, is relationship. Who do you know? Who do you know that has a podcast? Ask them. Who do you know that has a TV show? Ask them. Who do you know that has a radio show? Just ask. The worst that they're going to say is no. Mm-hmm. And as Alex said, no to me doesn't mean no. It just means not right now. So I thought that was really good advice too. No doesn't mean no to me. It just means not right now. I was like, oh, that's really good. That's really good. All right, Ashley, where can our listeners find out more about you?
Well, they can go to my website, ashleyberges.com, ASHLEY, Berges, BERGES.com. I'm also on every social media known to man. So you can find me on Facebook and all that kind of stuff too, and YouTube and everything. But best way to get in contact with me is ashleyberges.com. So you can find me there.
Beautiful. I really look forward to hearing what you have to say at the upcoming virtual forum, where you will be teaching us about the media options that are available out there and how the heck do you get started in that space. And you've provided so many gold nuggets here on this interview. I've really enjoyed your time. Thank you so much for being a part of our community.
Hey, I'm glad to be there, and thank you for thank you for everything. I'm just glad that I'm able to be there, and I just love the organization, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Oh, this is great. Well, you provided a lot of insight for me as well too.
I hope it was good. I hadn't written anything down for it, so I hope it all went well.
No, I really like these casual, just casual conversations where we start with one thing, and then as you talk, questions always come up. And I really like the direction that takes in. I feel like it's more authentic. It's a little more raw instead of being structured. And it's like, a posed portrait versus a cat, catching somebody in the moment, totally different.
And I didn't want to go too much in price because, we get somewhere we might start slower, we might start smaller. And then the other thing that I was thinking too is that, if somebody just said, hey, I want to just, because some people want to focus on one thing. I just want to focus on one thing because a lot of it gets overwhelming. Like if somebody wanted to focus just on a radio show and I went to, my networks and I went to the CEO of the network and I said, hey, let's figure out what we can do. That's consistency and that takes work, and they might say, hey, I just want to start that for 6 months and let's figure out where we go from there. Cause I know people it's a lot, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of their time, to create this content. So I didn't want to harp too much because if somebody wanted to do everything, we're ready to do that. But if somebody wanted to piecemeal it out, I think that's important too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just different strategies is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. Cause I think it's really, because there's so many different levels that we can use this for, and there's so many things that can play off this. And, if somebody if somebody wanted to just connect with certain types of people and they just interviewed those types of people, they're going to get those people to be there. You see what I'm saying? Like there's ways of strategies of doing all this stuff, but you got to be in the right place to play with that and to get the people to want to be on. And so there's that structure. I mean, yeah, you could have a podcast, but if you had this, that could be, that would lean people more to X, Y, Z. And so you're thinking about what is it that they want, and until people know what they want, they usually choose what they don't want, or they choose what's not going to get there because they're not being truthful to what they want. And once they're truthful, it doesn't matter what it is. We'll figure it out. It's just doing the right thing and knowing, hey, this is what I want. And I don't want to settle for anything else.
The lady that's coaching me, I've started working with her since December. That is something she's constantly asking me. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And it's because I know for me, I would create, or I would want to create something based off of what I think other people want. And it's not about them. Ironically, it's about you, but it actually turns into about them. When it's just such an interesting experience, and I'm learning all of this. Like when you're true to your nature and true to what your gift is and true on how you want to express yourself and who you want to be in this world, you show up authentically who you are, and the people that resonate with that becomes your audience, and you make an impact and have a difference on their life just because you're being you. You're sharing your gift, you're sharing your knowledge, your light, and what you bring to the world. And through that process, I find that it becomes about your customer. You're there to serve them, you're there to help them, but you can only do it by being who you really are.
You're so right. That is spot on. Anything else, you're not being deliberate. Anything else, you're not being honest. And anything else, where are we going? It's like, why are we trying to hide who we truly are when all we do is, you're right, just show up. And there will be some people that don't like it. And there'll be some people that aren't interested, and that's fine. But I mean, that's life.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing because you know who is going to be there and who's consistent, and you can speak to that. And that's what's powerful.
I love it. All right, Ashley, thank you so much for your time.